One of the most corrupt Republican politicians who is in the pocket of fossil fuel companies has just been given a pretty critical leadership role in the House. Now, North Carolina Republican Congresswoman Virginia Foxx has been named as the chair of the House Labor Committee, which has been renamed the Committee on Education and the Workforce. And her first order of business will be to protect her investments in fossil fuel companies. Now, in the spring of 2021, the Department of Labor initiated a rule to implement 2 climate change related executive orders from President Biden that directs its secretary to suspend a Trump-era rule that requires retirement plan fiduciaries, these are financial advisors who invest money on behalf of their clients, of course, to select investments and investment courses of action based solely on financial considerations relevant to the risk-adjusted economic value of a particular investment or investment course of action. That's a lot of words to say that Biden reversed a Trump-era rule that essentially forced fiduciaries to avoid considering things like environmental impact of their clients' investments, the future of environmental, technology. Like, don't consider any of that stuff. And it was just like a roundabout way of the Trump administration to avoid investment in renewable energy to ensure that investment in fossil fuel companies remain. Now, the Trump era rule, again, was designed to restrict so-called ESG investing, in which investment managers limit their exposure to companies that contribute heavily to climate change and factor in other metrics like workplace diversity and corporate transparency. Now, you know who absolutely despise the fact that Biden reversed the Trump era rule? Virginia Foxx, because Virginia Foxx is heavily invested in fossil fuel companies. You wanna know who else really didn't like the Biden reversal of the Trump era rule? Fossil fuel companies, who also donate heavily to Virginia Foxx. And so in July of 2021, Virginia Foxx gave a speech about what Biden did, and she was real upset about it. Let's watch.
The left's woke agenda is putting the retirement savings of many Americans at risk. The Biden administration's proposed rule would require retirement plan managers to consider environmental, social, and governance factors when making investment decisions for workers and retirees. These factors can include a company's carbon footprint, hiring practices, and whether it is unionized. ESG factors are subjective and arbitrary, making them a perfect weapon for the left. Forcing ESG standards on retirement accounts is a clear violation of the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, which requires fiduciaries to put the financial interests of plan participants first. ESG requirements pressure investors to subject retirement savings to low yield investments. This is irresponsible.
But it doesn't subject them to low yield investments, especially when you consider the fact that there is an effort, not just nationally, but internationally, to invest in the development of renewable energy in order to at least mitigate to some extent the impact of climate change. But Cenk, I don't know, I could be wrong about this. Maybe the fact that there's some potential insider trading and corruption going on with Representative Virginia Foxx doesn't matter at all.
Well, good news, there's an easy way to find out. So first, she says, for example, there's a woke agenda. And of course the Republicans say we're for freedom. And that's why we're doing this. And we want you to be able to invest in any investment vehicle for the workers, okay? All right, so let's find out who's right and who's wrong, right? So for example, could you have a woke agenda? Yeah, actually you could, it's possible. So for example, let's take an extreme example. If a Democratic administration were to say, all right, the only people we're gonna invest your retirement money in is funds handled by lesbians and Muslims. Okay, I would say that's mental, okay? And even if my group qualifies and and I'm born Muslim, etc., I'd be like, why would it help to just have Muslims? That doesn't make any sense. No, it's super important that you get the most amount of money into those retirement accounts. That's 1,000 times more important than any political correctness, et cetera, right? So is that what the Biden plan actually does? No, not at all. In fact, the Republican plan takes away your freedom. How? Well, the Republicans say, even if you have an ESG, that's the investment vehicles. They say, look, I'm going to invest into X, Y, and Z, but not into oil, not into fossil fuels. Even if that investment vehicle makes more money for the workers and does a better job, the Republicans say you're not allowed to invest into it. But wait a minute, why wouldn't you want the workers having more money and having a clean environment? Because
they're in the pocket.
Yeah. Exactly, because the point isn't, certainly they don't care about the environment, you already know that. But it's certainly not to protect the workers' retirement benefits and income. No, it's to protect the oil companies that they're directly invested in.
I thought the Republican Party was really well known for caring about the worker. I thought the Republican Party wanted to increase workers' wages and wanted to make sure that their retirement accounts were intact, that pensions were intact. Weird, Cenk.
Yeah,
I mean,
but the thing is, Anna, as you know, the Republicans lie about stuff like that with such regularity, and they pretend to be in favor of the workers. I'm just trying to protect your retirement money, right? That's why I don't want the woke agenda of the Democrats. And I swear to God, I guarantee you 99% of Republican voters, if they know about this issue at all, have no idea that they're Republican politicians and their right-wing media is lying to them. That in fact, it's the Republicans that are blocking freedom and the choice to make more money, not less money in their retirement accounts. And part of the reason for that is, of course, as we've always say, the Democrats never fight back and the mainstream media never clarifies. Especially on an issue like this, that sounds a little obscure, sounds a little hard to suss out all the differences. In reality, as we just explained to you fairly easily, it's not difficult at all, but they bury it in complexity so you don't realize that the Republicans are trying to rob you.
Right, and it's really the job of the media, in my opinion, to help decode this kind of stuff and make it easy for people to understand and digest, because the role of the media is to inform people about what's really going on. Look, I get it, right? Like the nonstop drama and theater that goes on in Washington, the interpersonal issues, the fighting, all of that stuff gets the clicks, it gets the attention, and people love it. But at the end of the day, this is the stuff that actually has an impact on your day-to-day life. And in this case, since we're talking about your retirement account, it has an impact on whether you have enough to retire, whether you'll ever be able to retire. These, first of all, fiduciaries who, the difference between a broker, if you've hired someone to manage your money, and a fiduciary is a broker makes a commission off of whatever investment vehicles they sell you on. Whereas a fiduciary literally legally has to have your best interests in mind, okay? Politicizing that role is pretty freaking disgusting. And that is what the Republican Party, under now the leadership of Virginia Foxx in this committee, is gonna attempt to do. She's going to hold hearings on this. She's gonna attempt to, reverse eventually the Biden era rule. And if she does, if she holds hearings on the Department of Labor's reversal of the anti-ESG rule, she would be doing so after making, this is graphic 3, hundreds of trades in the stocks of fossil fuel companies that would likely benefit from having the Biden administration's actions on the matter reversed. Sounds like a bit of a conflict of interest, no? Sounds like, she will be not only in control of, but also privy to policy that will have a direct impact on her investments. Let me give you more. Nearly half of the money Foxx and her spouse invested in 2021 appears to have been in shares of fossil fuel companies, including ExxonMobil and Plains All American Pipeline. And she has since made dozens of stock trades in oil, gas, and pipeline companies. Guys, It's really important to understand, okay? Any debate or discussion we have about parliamentary tactics in Congress, any discussion we have about elections, none of that stuff even matters when we have this system in place that allows for the policymakers to have this conflict of interest that leads to them becoming fabulously wealthy as they're serving as public servants. There's that issue, there's money in politics and the corruption that comes with. We gotta change the system. Otherwise, no policy that actually benefits ordinary Americans is really gonna get through.
Yeah, so let me tell you how the Democrats are similar to Republicans and different than Republicans. What Virginia Foxx is doing here is basically the Manchin model, and Joe Manchin is a Democrat. So Manchin realized, hey, I get all these campaign contributions from the coal companies and the fossil fuel industry, but that goes to my campaign. I can siphon off of it. I can get famous and powerful and turn that into money. But why don't I just start a coal company and then I could use my government power to enrich it? And that's exactly what he did. So he gets the campaign contributions and directly money into his pocket now, and he protects the coal industry 100% while he's in office, abuses his power to enrich himself in two different ways. Virginia Foxx looks over there at Manchin and goes, well, that's a good idea. Now, I don't want to start a whole company, but I'll just dump like half of my investments, and she's very rich, into oil companies, and then I'll favor oil companies totally unfairly in every law that I pass. So that way I'll get their campaign contributions and get richer off of them, okay? So that's the sick model that both parties use. But on this issue, the Republicans are wrong and the Democrats are right, okay? So you should, it's crazy to say even if a fund makes more money, because it does something positive in the world, we don't want it. That's nuts. And by the way, on fiduciary responsibility, we've covered this in a previous story. Republicans literally have voted against the person investing your money having a fiduciary responsibility in making sure it delivers the most for you instead of them. The Republicans say, no, if the banker takes your money and makes more money for himself and abuses your trust, that should be legal. So as much as the Democrats infuriate me on 99 topics, this ain't one of them. Here, there is a clear difference between the parties, and the Republicans are basically saying, look, man, rob anyone you want as long as you're a corporation, because I'm also part of the robbery.